Debbie, I think you have to mute. There you go. Unmute yourself.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm gonna,
Gotcha.
so wait a second, I need to,
You're all set.
oh, it doesn't, can you? My name's Debbie Shapiro-Sawyer, and I work for Universal Background. And it's been about 6 years almost that I've been with the company. But before joining Universal, I was in staffing, like you, like a lot of you. Not healthcare staffing, but I did administrative, HR, sales, placement. So I know how complicated and busy, and everyone needs everything now in staffing. So I understand that, and love to work with all of you with my staffing background. And just so you know a little bit about the group and how long I've been in it, it's been since last summer. And when I stumbled on the group, I was so excited to, talk and work with all of you and talk to you about background screening, because I know it can be confusing and there's a lot to it. So I've done presentations before for some of you, and I thought today I could go over some of the most asked questions and then maybe open it up to any questions that you have, and then we can go from there. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was services. So a lot of you will ask me, well, what does everybody else run, or what do the hospitals require, or what is the medical facilities looking for? And I always hate to answer you with, it depends, because they all want different things. And, we work with some of the largest healthcare staffing firms and MSPs, and to startups. And so I do see a lot of requirements. And so best thing, like Kyle just 2 days ago has a new placement he's going to make in a client, and they have very specific requirements for the background check and drug test and respirator fit test. And so we're going to go through it to make sure that he has the package he needs when he orders, and then can add the other items a la carte. And so I'm sorry I give you the answer of, it just depends, but that is really the case, because I'll see one hospital that wants, a 7-year county search, and then I'll see another hospital that wants a county search, a federal search, databases, et cetera. So we'll go over it case by case, unfortunately, but that's kind of how it is. There's no real requirements, although some of the MSPs have particular requirements. Like, for example, we work with Medical Solutions, and they're huge, one of the big players out there, and they often have one package particularly that they want, and it's exactly the same every time. So in that case, yes, especially if you work with Medical Solutions, and we can go over that case by case. But so what I want to do is just briefly, because I don't want to bore you, I know it's a lot, is just kind of go over services. And so the way that it works is there's county courts, okay? County courts all around the country, 3,300 of them. And the counties are the most up-to-date and accurate. So a lot of hospitals and healthcare, they want you to run counties, okay? So there's county searches, and then there's state searches. 7 states do not have a state search available, so you have to run counties. California, where I'm at, is one of them. We can go over that if you have particular questions. Sometimes the hospital will want counties and state searches. So the state search is a database. It's a database of all the counties combined. And the reason that it's not as up to date is the state searches, or the state database, you're hoping that those counties report to the state with their information as timely as possible. And some are timely and some aren't. So if you want real-time information, it's going to the counties, okay? About 30% of the counties are antiquated. So we need to send people to wait in line to get the information. And I'm gonna get back to that later. So I'm gonna go through it one by one. So we got counties, we have state searches, and then we have federal searches. So a lot of clients will say, well, wouldn't most things be in the federal courts? And the answer is no, because federal searches are more of the white collar crimes, fraud, money laundering, completely different cases in federal courts. That's why a lot of the hospitals do require you to run federal searches, because if you don't run it, you will miss a case that is money laundering, drug trafficking, that kind of stuff. So we got county, state, federal, and then we've got databases. So we have something called the USA Criminal, and that's the national criminal. The national criminal is about 22 states. It's a compilation of information from the whole nation, whoever reports into it. So it's not 22 states and we have 52 states, or 54. So it's not, it's a good lead generator. So if you're doing like a 7-year county search or state search and you put a national search in with it, you're really covering your bases. So hopefully if the candidate travels outside of where they live, we're going to pick up the hits in the national search. FCRA law says that you have to vet that information. It's not like we're just going to report, oh, well, Debbie Shapiro has a bunch of hits across the country. No, we need to go to those counties and we need to vet the information and make sure it is or it isn't your candidate. And a lot of times I'll say it's to vet the information to make sure it's not your candidate, especially with a common name like mine or a John Smith. Is really common. So a lot of hits will come up. So we need to make sure to go through those and not just data dump and report all the information, which is against the law actually. But we do see that a lot of firms doing that. Okay, so within the database realm, there's the national search and there's the sex offender search. Sex offender search is an important one. Most hospitals want the sex offender search run. Not everyone's running it, but a lot of our clients run the sex offender search. That also has to be vetted, of course. Some clients will say to me, well, if there's a sex offense, wouldn't that be in the county? Well, you hope so, but if you want to know about a sexual offense, you really want to run the sex offender search. So sex offender, and then we have the terrorist watch list, which is the OFAC search. Lots of clients want that, and then sort of like an OFAC on steroids, and it's called the USA Security, which I won't get into a bunch of details, but it's like a security search for international. So that's that, and then from there, there's healthcare databases or sanction lists, and that the most well-known is the FACES. FACES 3 includes all the state and federal across the country. So I always suggest that clients run the FACES if they need to run the exclusion list. And then there's abuse registries for many of the states. So a lot of you have requirements for the abuse registries, which we have. Okay, so that's it. Those are the different searches as far as criminal goes. So you got county, state, federal, databases, exclusion lists for healthcare, and abuse registries. Okay. And if there's ever something that you have a question about, let me know, because I can go to our operations and see if it's something that we can run something out of the norm. Okay. So a lot of you will ask me, what's a criminal search? Those are criminal searches. Okay. Now, within that, you can run all names. So a great way to hide who you are is to change your name. And so we always, for best practice, recommend that you run all names. Not all clients are running all names. Not all hospitals and healthcare facilities and medical clinics require it, but it's a good idea. And then I would say, I don't know, there's so many firms in our industry that are not accredited. So an accreditation is with the National Association of Professional Background Screeners, now called PBSA. They just changed their name. Only about 6 or 7% of the industry is accredited. We're one of them. We're one of the founding members of the group. So we're seeing that a lot of background check companies are popping up, and they're not accredited, and they're not following the rules that you really need to follow for compliance. And one of those is skipping the courts that require the court runners. So like I was saying earlier, about 30% of the courts require court runners, and we're seeing them skip those. And Murphy's Law is that's where the hits are going to be, right? In the court that you skipped. So we have court runners that will wait in line. If they have a lot of cases at that court, they can only ask for 3, and then they got to go to the end of the line. And we have to pay those people per hour. So when I hear that someone, is getting a quote and they'll do a 7-year county search for $10, I know that there's got to be steps that are being skipped, because there's just no way to accommodate that and be in compliance, which we can talk about a little further. Now, within those county courts, they do charge pass-through fees, which I've been going over with a lot of you guys, a lot of the gnosis, so that you understand that there could be further fees than what I'm quoting you. So, for example, Los Angeles charges $4.50 to pull records. New York charges $95. that went up from 65 a couple years ago. It was, I couldn't believe it when they did 95 to pull a record just from their court. So we have that listed on our portal. When you set up an account with us, you can always reference that. So if you're working with a background check company and you're not getting any pass-through fees, that would be a red flag that maybe they're not actually walking into those courts or going to those court databases, real-time court databases, to pull the information, because there's no way around those charges. So that's something to look at. Another thing I hear a lot is NOSA's talking about instant background checks, and oh gosh, I got mine back in an hour, and that's so great. And that is great. And when I was in staffing, I would have said, yes, an hour. Then I can place my person, it's my candidate. That's what I want. But you want to look out for that too, because like I said, 30% of the courts are antiquated. So if it got back in an hour, did they go to the court? Did they wait in line? It could be that the candidate didn't have a court that you have to wait in line, but if it's not usually an hour if you're vetting the information. So that's something I always want to, kind of point out so that you guys can understand that you want to look out for that. If it's too fast and too cheap, it's a red flag. One thing to look at too, when you go to the website of these companies, on the bottom, there's like a little note saying, please don't use this for hiring purposes or employment purposes. This is for sort of like entertainment. I mean, entertainment to run a background check, maybe someone you're dating, which if we consider that entertainment, I don't know, but so look at that. Look at the company that you're doing business with, and look at the bottom of their website, and make sure they're a firm that you should be using for employment. And if you have any question, ask me about it. I'd love to answer your questions. So in addition to background checks, we do drug testing and occupational health, which includes, TB tests, MMRs, respirator fit tests, all of those. And so for a lot of you that I've set up with accounts, I add that on the front end so that you have it available if you need it. Like with Kyle, we added that to his account when he set up. He hasn't needed it, but now he needs to run a respirator fit test. So we're going to talk later, and I'll tell him how to do that. We work with Quest, LabCorp, and Concentra, and all the labs that contract with them. So in our portal, you'll see, like, you put in the zip code of your candidate, the test that you want, and then you'll see all the labs that come up. From there, you can create the form to send to the candidate. So I'm guessing that's how, most background check companies will work, and, you'd run it that way. But if you have questions about your account and want to set up with us, I can, elaborate. We can integrate with many of the applicant tracking systems and are already integrated. So if that's anything you wanted. And then we do have something called eForms, which is not, I think only one NOSA has that. If you're doing 100 background checks a year, it would be free, but it's like a couple $100s to set up. But it's where you send an invitation to the candidate, and they trigger and input the information for their background check and sign off on the authorization, which the authorization is very important. You want to make sure that you get an authorization signed before you run a background check to cover yourself, because you want to have your candidate know that you're doing that and have them sign off on that. And there's a lot of legality around that too. You want to use a standalone form, which we have on our portal and all of our clients can download. So that was a lot of the stuff I wanted to cover. Does anybody have questions or anything they want to discuss? Unmute yourself. I'm so happy to, have a conversation and talk about any questions that you might have.
Hey, Debbie, I'll jump in with a quick question.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, all super helpful information. It's crazy how just kind of fragmented all this is. So great to kind of have an expert when you're thinking about navigating this. So when we think about these counties, is it always going to just be the county? Like if I'm staffing, let's say, a traveler in Los Angeles County, do I just need to run a background check local there, or does it need to be where that traveler's tax home address is, and or any locations that they've worked? Like, how does that look?
Right. Oh, that is such a great question, and I'm so happy you covered that. So the typical is a 7-year search. So it'll run the counties where the candidate has lived. The Social Security trace develops counties where the candidate has lived. But great question. A lot of my staffing firms, healthcare staffing firms, are needing lived and worked counties, and some need lived, worked, and even where they went to school. Okay. So actually in our portal, you can add that, and I can design packages that are lived and worked in school, for 1, the counties, 2, the states, and 3, the federal districts. So we can do all 3. It just depends on what the scope is that's required by the client. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so that's a great question. So I would say though, a lot of clients will do rescreen packages, annual rescreen packages, and that's where I'll do the current county only, because on the front end, the year before we ran all the counties where they lived. Now we're just going to run the county where they've been the last year. Because why pay for 7 years if you just really want to know where they've been that last year?
Okay. Right? Yeah, that makes sense.
Good. I'm so glad that was a good question.
Yeah. And I know with just how long background checks can take when we're having to do all this stuff, you know, it really helps if you can prep as much as possible for it. So thinking about things like that tells me, as you're kind of onboarding and screening that candidate, go ahead and collecting that work history and finding out what counties and things like that, so you can pass that information on to get the background check. So with that, is it appropriate to, because I know background check authorization forms need to be completed up front. Do you advise folks to be capturing that kind of very early on in the application process along with this work history, so everything's ready to go? Or is it more appropriate to start to do that as we're getting ready?
You know, when I was in staffing, we got the background check authorization on the front end. We did. Gotcha. And as far as I would say now, I don't think it's a bad idea to get the background check authorization signed on the front end so that you have it.
Okay.
Because there's nothing wrong with it. But like I said, in our e-form process, which not a lot of the NOSAs have because they don't really need it yet, the authorization is signed within the process, and then it uploads right into our system. Not that we require seeing it, but it will upload so that you guys can access it at any time. We don't purge any files. So even if a client worked with us 5 years ago, they can still go back into their account and pull authorization forms, reports, and can also upload further documents if they want to.
Very cool. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Very cool.
Anybody else? I hear somebody.
There are some questions in the chat, Debbie.
Chat. I don't see a chat.
I'm gonna do them for you, okay?
Oh, okay, perfect.
Natalie asked, have you seen any VMS recently that require more than others?
I see Medical Solutions requires a huge package. It's about $90. It's about $90. It's called the Dignity Package. And I see staffing firms across the board using it. And it's very comprehensive. So I would say Medical Solutions, you know, that's the one I'm most familiar with. So I'll just say that. Thanks, Natalie.
I think Kyle might have had a question.
Okay. Hi, Kyle. Oh, he was there. I saw him a second ago. Oh, there he is. Hi, Kyle.
Hi, guys. I'm at work right now. I just shot that chat message. I'll go ahead and video ask the question, though. Thank you for doing this call, by the way, Debbie and Shamika, for putting it together. I was wondering, I've been asked to either get prophecy or nurse competency for a skills validation for my candidate for a particular hospital system. So, and I just saw Shamika said back in the chat, try out higher staffing. I have not used any of the three. Was curious if Universal has a solution for that, or a referral possibly. And ideally, I would like to hear from anyone that has actually used one, because as we all know, you know, you try something and you run into all these pitfalls, and you might find something better that someone had better experience with. So I'm open to suggestions, and I appreciate it.
You know, we've talked to Skill Survey. We're talking to a couple that do those skill tests, just so I have a good referral to pass along, but we haven't set up anything formal. John, do you know? I feel like John would know.
Yeah, that's a common question, Kyle. Kind of like Debbie was saying with these background checks, you do need to do what your client's going to want. So if they're only going to accept prophecy or nurse competency, of those two, I think nurse competency might be a little more economical. Prophecy can be kind of expensive, but if they say it has to be one of those two, then, I would stick with what they want. But if they're more open to others, there's a really cool new company called Healthcare Staffing Hire, and I'll email you the link. But it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
yeah.
I
So
didn't realize that's what, I know
Yeah, I
that.
think I said it backwards. That's the company I'm talking about, Kyle.
mhm.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, I
So
must have
yeah.
said it backwards.
I'd reach out to them, Kyle, and they may be able to answer that question if your client will accept, because they do both the skills checklist and the competency test. But your client may say, I mean, you know how these hospitals can be with these credentialing checklists, they may not be open to anything different than what they're already used to. And if that's the case, then I would check out nurse competency, because I think they'll allow you to do more kind of a la carte, like if you just need it for this one time, whereas prophecy is probably going to want you to set up like a contract and do a bunch of other stuff. And I just don't hear great reviews from agencies that are using prophecy, unfortunately.
Thanks for the heads up. I appreciate that.
For sure.
Shamika, might you have any input on that, Shamika, of what you found that works for you?
I'm actually going to agree with John on both parts. Prophecy is very expensive. And I think we've all participated as employees with prophecy, so it's not as in-depth. I would definitely, if they're only looking for this for one particular position, then, definitely look into some other options, or even maybe determine like what they're looking for. Like, what are they looking to determine to use this particular skill set? Like, are they looking that they can do this or that? And then maybe look at other avenues. Yeah, I've heard that prophecy is thousands of dollars to kind of get a one all-encompass package that you may not need to use for other clients.
What I was going to ask everybody is, I saw when I started about 3 years ago in travel healthcare, I saw that what they originally asked of employees, their candidates, was for the candidate themselves to give to the agency, to give to the hospital, a physically filled out form, check marking the box of whatever they were competent with on a scale of like 1 to 5 for certain occupations. And I've seen that. And I know there's a company that has those sheets out there, and I've seen them built into the agency websites. Was curious if that is archaic now, and now they're requiring the third-party skills validation requirements. I wonder what kind of the trend is that you guys are all seeing.
Yeah, I'll chime in on that. Again, kind of going back to, if your client will accept a skills checklist and it doesn't have to be prophecy, like I'll send you a whole template library, and it's the PDF. And sure, it's archaic, but it's free. So if you've already got a setup with like DocuSign, or like Kamana has an e-sign provider, you can provide that to the healthcare professional. They can fill it out, and then you can hand it over. So if your client is not saying we will only accept a prophecy skills checklist, there's a lot of economical ways that you can check that box. So kind of just going back to what that client's looking for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I agree too. I think I've still seen some of the checklists. And then usually if you do like the competency testing, at the end of it, they'll also include the checklist just as an automated version on the website. So
Yeah.
I would just find out, Kyle, do they want you to do actual testing, or do they just want you to do a checklist?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll ask. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
I see 6 chats. I'll let you read them, Shamika.
I think we got, Natalie had another question. Let's see. Okay, so Natalie's saying, from an insurance standpoint of view, just please make sure to check the contract and the requirements.
Yeah.
So that's what Natalie's chiming in about.
Natalie.
And I had a question, Debbie, and I want to see if maybe you can elaborate a little bit. I know during one of your presentations you did probably a couple months back, you were mentioning about checking the box. And you were saying, I think it was the box, and I might have it a little turned around, about checking the box whether or not you had a past felony.
Yes.
And you had mentioned that there's some changes coming down the pipeline with that. And I'd be interested in knowing kind of how that would impact us from a hiring standpoint of view.
Yeah, it's state by state. And so you would really need to look at, for you, Delaware, and see, what the particulars are. But I can see if I have any documents to share with you on the ban the box. I mean, it's so funny how things have changed. When I was in staffing, you could ask everybody everything. If they've been convicted of a crime, what their salary history is, and all that stuff. But there's a lot of rules around it now. So I'll see if there's something I can share with you. But you always want to be careful with those things anyway nowadays, because a lot of states have different requirements for that. California, where I'm at, is the most strict. I hope that helps, Shamika. But I'm going to see if I have something for you. And I'll share it with you too, all of you, actually, Kyle and Natalie and John. I'll share that with you if I have something. Hi, Stacy. I see you just joined us.
Okay, great.
Hi.
Hi. And Stacy, if you missed it, we can certainly set up a call and I can answer any questions that you have or review some of the things that I covered with everyone. I think you
awesome. That'd be great. I appreciate that.
Yeah, what's your email? And I'll shoot you an email when we're done.
I can put it in the chat. Would you like me to put it?
Oh yeah, Shamika, will you send that to me?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Thank you. I think Shamika's just kind of reviewing some questions to see if there's any further. Hey, Kyle, if that doesn't work today, you'll let me know. I know that you're busy in the hospital. So we could go over that whenever it works. If it has to be Monday, it's fine too, whatever,
If no one has any other questions, I had a question for John. If he's listening, I was curious for the Kamana built-in system for the skills validation. Is that only for the handwritten templates, or is that electronic where they can check mark the boxes? How is that kind of set up? If you want to go ahead, explain that. I'm sorry, I never really captured that from anything that you had ever put out there.
Yeah, sure. And that feature is probably new since the last time you checked out Kamana, but we have an embedded integration with HelloSign. So whatever template you have, so it can be the PDF skills checklists that are accepted by a lot of facilities. You're just building out an e-sign template with that. And then when you go to send it to Debbie, the nurse, it's going to populate her name, her specialty. She'll sign at the bottom and the date, and then she can go through and check the item. So that gives an electronic way that she can complete it on her phone or from her computer. And when she does, it kicks it back over to you. And then I do have some customers that have competency curriculum that they've made. So like you, they're healthcare professionals. So they've actually written out like an ICU nurse competency test or a CNA competency test. And that's really not recommended when we think about like NATO and Joint Commission. They don't really like to see you creating that curriculum and doing that. So I don't advise that, but there are some folks that will use Kamana and they'll just build out a test just like in Word document, and then also facilitate that through HelloSign, because you can do drop downs like A, B, C, or D, or fill in the blank, etc. So there's that option there as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, I would like to converse with you if the hospital will move forward with a system like that versus Prophecy or nurse competency.
Sure.
I'm not sure at this point in time.
Yeah, for sure. And if you want to look at their credentialing packet together, we can check it out, try to navigate that.
Hey,
Awesome.
Debbie.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kyle. I had one other question since John was mentioning Joint Commission. Are there any specific requirements from the background investigation process that we need to be mindful of if we're looking into the future to become Joint Commission certified and things of that nature?
Joint Commission requires primary source verifications. That's one big thing for Joint Commission, and we're Joint Commission certified, so they consider us a CVO because we do the verifications just the way they want them for primary source only. And what that means is we're not going to call the hospital and just talk to Kyle. We're going to talk to the Office of Records and go to the primary source, and that's what they require. Now, as far as the other items, I'm actually curious about that. I talked to someone that thinks that they know if that there's particulars on background screening, but I've never heard any particulars because, like I said in the beginning, is so many of the hospitals and facilities have their own requirements and they all vary. And I always wish I could have a straight answer for you, but it varies so much, it's unbelievable. And that's why one of the things I always do for my clients, especially the larger ones that have a lot of clients, is I just create different packages. ABC client, DEF client, their requirements, and their one is completely different from the other. One requires all names, the other one doesn't. One wants federal, the other doesn't. One wants verifications, and the other doesn't. So one wants where they lived and worked, and the other doesn't. So we just provide the different scopes of work within the package so that you guys are compliant every time, and that's really, really important. I always say, just tell me what the new requirements are. We'll create a new package. I don't want you to ever be in a rush and go into the system and go, oh, shoot, what does ABC hospital want again? You know that I did it on the front end just the way you need it. As a matter of fact, hi, Montella. How are you? She just joined us, so I just want to say hi to Montella. But I've had one person from the NOSA group have me join their call with the hospital. I've never done that before. They never want to talk to me. They never want to include me on the call, but they did. And they went through all the requirements with me, which is not the norm. And so I created the package based on exactly what her client wanted because I talked to them myself.
Well, that's probably a good time saver. I think that's probably a good time saver. And then I had one last question, and you guys have feel free to jump in with your questions. Is that when we had one background investigation, I think you touched on this earlier, the company that we were using, we ended up having a lot of time lapse before they were able to get the background investigation completed. Because like you said, some of the court systems are antiquated. Mm-hmm. So it took maybe 4 weeks.
Oh, wow.
It happened to be in California. So I'm curious to know if there are certain states that have more of that more likely than others. Yeah, because we didn't know, we were just entering California. We had somebody, we had a job opportunity, and then we're kind of having this person in limbo for weeks and weeks. And they were just kind of saying, we're working on it. We still have to do this and this and this. So I'm curious to know if there's certain states that have that happen more than others.
Yes, from what I can see, Georgia is a big one, and California is a big one because of all of our rules here. But what we have on our website or on our portal is a section where there's delays. As we started that during COVID, and so you can click on it and go through every county across the country and see if there's been delays and why. The court is closed because of COVID, this and that. But I see the most delays in Georgia. I see a lot of delays in Illinois too. Cook County, they're pretty slow too. And then here in California, in Northern California, it's San Luis Obispo. I can't think of the county right now, but they are so slow. And they actually sent us a letter saying, we're going to take 2 weeks. We're going to take 2 weeks. We're not going to provide the information. You can share this letter with your clients, but we're only going to deal with you guys for about 10 people a day. That's it. So they're kind of mean to us because we're like, we bug them for information and they don't want to always give it. So they're not as timely as we would like. So that's why it's great when there's databases that we can access without having to go walk in. But Shamika, you just don't know all the time where your candidate has lived and if there's going to be a delay. I mean, it happens. Our average turnaround time before COVID was about 2 days. 2 days for criminal, 3 days with verifications. But that's been extended a bit with COVID and also when holidays come up during the summertime, it's tougher to get education verifications completed. That's been really tough. And I want to say one other thing on that note, because I always like to be really upfront. There, with education verifications, the third party. So a lot of times now, say you call California State, UCLA, and UCLA is like, yeah, we don't do verifications. You're going to have to call the work number or the I can't think of the name right now. The anyway, it's whatever the name is, and they're charging $30 to $40 as their third party fee. No way around it. Even if you called as the staffing firm and said, I just would like to verify this education, for so-and-so, they'll say, well, you better call the third party. And then that third party will charge you $30 to $40. So that happens. And then we have to pass it along. We don't add anything to it. And so that's another thing I've been seeing a lot more lately. Because when I was in staffing, I did verifications myself because I always tried to sell everybody. Surprise, surprise, right? I wanted to make new relationships. So I did my own verifications and I always got through to everyone. But nowadays there's these third parties. So just FYI.
Okay, I think that's good to know, especially since a lot of people maybe jumped into the industry around COVID and may not understand that there's going to be an even more of a time lapse. So that's good to know too.
Yeah. And that's like the most frustrating thing. And what we do is we can send out turnaround time reports. Some of my larger clients want a monthly report and it'll just automatically be sent out on the 10th of the month with turnaround times per service, per package, so that they can really see what's taking longer, what isn't. And I, of course, look at those reports each month when they go out. I'm CC'd, and our turnaround times are pretty good. They really are, especially compared to what I hear out there. So I know there's issues and problems, and sometimes we're at the mercy of the court, but we do the best we can. We're hustlers to get that information for you. We know that that's most important to start your candidates.
Gotcha.
I just have a note right on that subject before we switch the subject. Debbie, on that subject, great question, by the way, Shamika, because I had the same. I had been one of those people, actually, Shamika, that was trying to figure it out right during COVID, like you suggested with Debbie. And I was finding stuff from the American Staffing Association that I was sending to Debbie so she could show her boss of all the holdups for COVID, because
that was so good.
My facility was not taking no, well, the VMS was not taking no for an answer, rather. And Debbie's like, well, they need to take no for an answer because that is the answer for right now, because the courts are closed. And they were like, what do you mean the courts are closed? They thought I was like saying my dog ate my homework. So where I was going with that is, to recap on that, Debbie, you were saying Georgia and California have the slow courts, and then the education verification is slow in the summer. Is there, back to that, is everything else up to date like it was pre-COVID now, other than the exception
it's gotten a lot better. Yeah.
Okay.
But I will say, we'll go over it when we talk. We'll have you go into the portal, because the section that has all the information on delays, there's still some stuff on there. So there is still some delays, but it's so much better. Oh gosh, it's so much better. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Sorry, Shamika, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I know there's a couple of people on the call. If you guys have questions, Debbie's here to ask the questions. I just have a tendency to ask questions that come through me in my own experiences. But if you have questions about the background process and stuff, feel free to ask. That's what she's here to do.
And I'm happy to set up individual calls. I enjoy all the NOSAs a lot, and I'm happy to answer questions. So I work with a lot of the NOSAs at this point, and happy to work with a lot more. So I'm here to answer questions. I posted my name, number, and email on the invite. And so if you want to take a look at that, somebody's connecting right now with a cute picture, but I don't see your name. Oh, Dee Marie, there you are. How are you?
I think she's still connecting her audio.
I don't know her name, so that's why I'm calling her Dee Marie, because that's what it says, and I've seen her.
That's her name. That's her name.
Okay. Because I know so many people, it's like I connect with them and they're like, no, that's not my name. And then I talk and I get their real name. So any questions that you guys have, I'm happy to answer. Sorry, my lighting isn't good. I definitely need a production person here.
Well, if you guys don't have any additional questions, we can go ahead and wrap it up. Like I said, I recorded the video, so it'll be available in the group. I'm going to say Friday. Okay. That way, for you guys who maybe had to jump in a little bit later, you'll be able to get the information. As always, you can always reach out to Debbie directly. Her information is on the event in the group. And you want to drop your information in the chat, Debbie?
Oh, okay. I'll do that right now.
Wow.
Oh, okay, here we go.
Thanks for doing this, Debbie. This is all really, really great information. It'll be great to pass along to others. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, and thank you so much. I'm so glad that you joined us too, John. You're so informative, and I appreciate our partnership. Shamika, thank you so much for including me in the group and letting me do these every few months. I'm happy to do these whenever. I actually love this platform, Zoom. I love that we can all talk to each other. I am just loving this, because last time I was talking and I didn't get any feedback, and I just like the feedback and the questions and stuff. So this has been amazing. So thank you so much for setting this up, Shamika, and I'm happy to do this anytime.
Definitely. We'll have some more. And actually, I think we have Natalie on here. Natalie, did you want to say something? She's going up next week on the 13th for you guys who are interested in finding out more about everything business insurance. Okay.
Yeah, Natalie's a friend of mine, and we've worked together for a very long time. We're both part of the California Staffing Professionals Group. Natalie does all the insurance for staffing and is so informative. I always go to her with my questions. Brought her into the group because I knew that she's so sweet and helpful, that she could be a good resource for all of you. So I think she might be trying to talk, but
Yeah.
if not, definitely join her call next week. And I'd like the information too, because I'll dial into Natalie. She's trying to connect to audio right now, it looks like.
Okay. And all the information about next week is in the group, and the Zoom link and everything is set up. So.
Well, thank you guys so much. This was so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have a good weekend. I don't think Natalie can connect, but join her next week. You guys have a good one. Thank you.
You too. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.